Learn, experiment, achieve, and take off. We're anthropologists and social scientists who put leaders under the microscope. We are your eyes and ears to dig up the most valuable insights for success to help make you and your business better. We give you the tools to lead your future and help build leaders we all want to look up to. So, rise to your potential. Launch. Welcome. I'm Rebecca Bennett, your host. Today's guest is Jerry Abiog, co-founder and CMO of Standard Insights, which provides growth marketing with AI as a service. His firm was born from lessons learned from past failures and has come on to the Launch Podcast today to talk about a phoenix that has arisen from the ashes. Because the AI market is projected to grow to almost $400 billion by 2025, we wanted to explore AI with someone who has had a hand on driving it forward. I hope that my conversation with Jerry today will give our listeners a better sense of AI as the future and how to go about integrating it into one's business. Well, welcome, Jerry, to the show. I want to kick things off by asking you to give our listeners some backstory on how you got into AI and your experience with it.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for having me on. So, a brief history of my background. My name is Jerry Abiog. I'm co-founder of Standard Insights. Got 25 years in sales and marketing experience. And roughly 9 years ago, I left the corporate world. Check out my LinkedIn. That was my last corporate job. And 9 years ago, I started my own business, helping software companies with sales and marketing initiatives. And along the way, we've had some great clients with some great exits. But as they say in life, you learn from failure. And one of the big failures I had with one of my clients was an AI company, AI machine learning company. Let's take this back 3-4 years ago. So worked with this client. We had a great idea, but it was an utter failure. We had $1 million worth of funding, and we blew it, long story short. And so when a lot of things went wrong with that company, mainly that we weren't customer focused, if you will. But long story short, as this company was imploding, I learned two things. Number one, regardless of what software you're selling, it has to be something that is easy to use and that'll solve your customers' business problems. And number two, I didn't realize it back then, but there was something bubbling beneath the surface with regards to AI-driven technology. So during this time, through serendipitous events, I met my future co-founder. He was visiting from India, used to live in Atlanta, used to work for a Fortune 50 company as a technological architect. He had pitched me this idea that he had of a AI-driven growth marketing platform. And learning what I learned from my past company, I had thought it had enough legs to warrant a look. So I took his idea, this prototype flew from Atlanta to Denver, went to the outdoor retail show. When I returned back to Atlanta a week later, I secured 2 beta clients, and that was the beginning of Standard Insights.
Got it. Yeah, that's definitely the way that a lot of entrepreneurs get started is they see the failures of another business. What were those weak points? And then they try to build off of that. That's very entrepreneurial of you.
Yeah. So it was both, right? I'll be honest, it's a little bit of luck, but then learning was involved, learning from past failures. Not attacking everything at once, just going in, getting your foot in the door, and taking it from there.
Yeah, that seems to be a successful growth strategy for a lot of companies. Starting off in one target area or niche, trying to master it in that area, and then try to see what you can transition over that's applicable to other industries in order to scale seems a really great growth strategy. So can you tell us exactly how does Standard Insights leverage AI?
Yeah, so what we do is we take, regardless of vertical, customer data, and that could be geographic, demographic, behavior data, psychographic, and their purchase patterns. We take it, we analyze it, and then we do our AI-driven both predictions, predictive and prescriptive analytics. We take all that and we take that data and we execute data-driven omni-channel campaigns. So once everything is connected, with 2-3 clicks of your mouse, you're running data-driven campaigns, email, text, or social media.
Mm-hmm. And how did you guys come up with this idea of leveraging the AI for the customer insights?
Yeah, so AI, we're at its early stages, and the early adopters were e-commerce companies, in the retail space. So what we noticed out there is that a lot of businesses or a lot of software packages were more interested in bringing new customers on board, but there was a lack of services or software companies that took existing customer data to drive repeat buyers, repeat business. And there was a study put out by Bain that even a 5% increase in customer retention can result in 25 to 95% increase in profit. So that was our mindset going in as we developed this prototype. Back then was a prototype.
So Jerry, a lot of times companies struggle with trying to not just plan for how they're going to implement AI, but how they're going to actually execute on it. If a company were to start from scratch and try to implement an AI initiative, where do you recommend they start? How would they prepare?
So as the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So just start out small. You don't have to use AI to improve sales or efficiencies with the entire company all at once. Just start out small, start at one particular department that maybe has the lowest hanging fruit, if you will, and start there and attack there. And once that happens and you're seeing improvements, go to other areas of the company.
Great. So I'm curious, though, I want you to share with our audience how you measure your ROI with AI. So you're selling AI as a solution to companies to help improve their customer sales and retention. How do you help those companies measure their ROI using your product?
So typically one of 3 ways is obviously first thing and foremost is improvement in sales. Number 2 is increase average order value. And number 3, reduce customer churn.
Great. And I think you mentioned to me earlier something about customer profitability score. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so the profitability score, potential profitability, since this is an AI audience, we look at 3 things. And you're probably familiar with this term. Regardless of any vertical, or we look at 3 things: the recency someone purchased, the frequency someone purchased, and how much money they've spent. So there's 3 things. So someone can come back to me, hey, Jerry, I'm great in math. I could figure this out on my own. And I'll say, okay, roger that. But then I'm going to give you a spreadsheet of 2,000 customers, and this company has 100 different products. Rebecca, I want you to give me an RFM analysis and score everyone, top to bottom, half hour, go. And they can't. They go, Jerry, I'm good at math, but this is going to take time. So in today's business environment, it's time and efficiency. You may be great in math, and I can give you a spreadsheet of 2,000 customers with what they purchase and how often and how much money they've spent. But here, it's time is of the essence. And how do you prioritize and execute based on the data that's given to you?
Oh, fantastic. So, Jerry, a lot of companies, they get excited about the hype around new technologies, and they have these amazing capabilities in AI and they want to adopt. But the problem is that when companies buy these new technologies and they implement them, they fail to change the processes and people around the technology so it all fits in together strategically. So what I want to kind of understand is, what does your company do to help these companies solve their problems more holistically, going beyond just implementing that technology?
Yeah, great question, Rebecca. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I can do a big song and dance in front of C-level execs, and they'll get excited because I've got a pretty PowerPoint presentation. But at the end of the day, if they sign on a dotted line, but they never log into your software, they're not going to renew. So that is just a waste of time. So in order to mitigate that or help customers along, we do have a managed services component. So we help guide our clients along throughout the process, because it's one thing to get excited about it, but it's another thing to implement what we've suggest. It's just like, everyone, New Year's, everyone gets excited about, getting on a diet, right? You get excited about it, but you've actually got to go through the process day in and day out, or even in a relationship, right? Everything's great the first, first year, but then it's hard work, right? So you got to grow and feed it. And same thing with our software. We're just not going to give it to you. Hey, Rebecca, here's your login information.
Right.
Go.
Right. So I also wanted to ask you, so building an AI solution is no easy feat. You definitely need the right talent to do it, as well as the right vision. And I'm curious as to your journey so far at Standard Insights, as well as kind of leading up to that as well, what current challenges have you faced in building and implementing your AI?
So there are, a couple things. In order to have a startup that's going to succeed, and I learned this from past failures, is you have to have, I guess, two big components. Co-founders are highly technical, and our technical co-founders in India, one guy used to work for General Electric. So he worked for I believe General Electric is a Fortune 50 company. He worked there as a technological architect. So he had not only the technical savvy, but business savvy as well. Mm-hmm. He ran a big budget. And then you have another guy that has our other co-founder, computer science. Then you've got myself, sales and marketing. The other, our CEO, co-founder CEO, has a wealth of knowledge with regards to how to properly run a startup. So it has to have both tech savvy and business savvy, and everyone has to communicate and have a singular goal and an open communication, right? So whether it's amongst us four co-founders or communication with your customers. So our biggest challenge right now is probably, we could always use more resources, right? And that's where funding comes in. But so it's a balancing act between selling and scheduling. But as long as we keep open and honest communication, with our customers, then nothing ever flows smoothly, but we can anticipate the bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it gets easier and easier with each client, each journey that you go on with them, to handle those bumps. And I think that when you're putting a team together, especially for a startup, marrying the right talent together, like you said, finding that co-founder with that technical expertise. I found that even with my business, it's been really critical to get that on board early and then get on like the top good talent. And then people who are really committed to that startup environment and the vision, who really believe in it. And then filling your team out from there, just complementing each other's skills, filling in the gaps as you go, I think is a great approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you feel like the implications of COVID-19 are on AI progress and adoption? So I specifically wanted to see how this has been, what's the impact been on your company since COVID? Have you had to pivot, or things are going swell and dandy and you just keep doing what you're doing?
So a couple things. Thankfully, the clients that we had, they were in, like one client sells masks, another client sells PPE equipment. So we were lucky in that fact that our clients, were involved in COVID-related industries, number one. Number two, as most lockdowns are happening, all the companies that we were in discussions with prior to COVID, well, it stopped once the lockdowns happened in March. But now all the folks we were in discussions with, like finance companies, now they're giving us a call. One thing on how we've pivoted Standard Insights is this time last year, we developed an AI-driven digital menu that we presented to restaurants. Presented to a buddy of mine up the street. He kind of poo-pooed it. But now along comes COVID. CDC's recommending digital menus. And so we pulled out of the garage and we tweaked it. A month and a half ago, I was walking the dog with my wife. And the same buddy who poo-pooed it yelled across the street, like, hey, do you still have that, that AI-driven digital menus? So we pivoted. right to a product that we had that we put away. And now, we got the new subdomain up in 2 weeks. I'm fielding a call a day from restaurants and restaurant consultants. So, yeah, I think it's accelerated the digitization process. I was on a conference call in the restaurant space last year. In the restaurants, let's be honest, prior to COVID, they had slim margins, and they weren't the most tech savvy. And all this AI stuff in digitization, for a lot of them, was 3-4 years out, and now it's 3-4 months. So now it's happening now with AI-driven digitization with restaurants. So whether it's in restaurants or other verticals, I think it's accelerated the AI adoption process.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see how these world and global events, it's so important to pay attention to these global events to see how it affects industries. Because who would have thought the restaurant industry would have been the first to try to pivot and ramp up and find new ways to respond to a situation like this. And now they're, like you said, they're the perfect candidate as a customer for an AI solution using the digital menu like you talked about. But I think I really liked how in your pivot, so a lot of companies are struggling to figure out what's their next step, where do they go? And I like how you looked to your inventory of old products, almost like your backlog, to see what did we build before so we don't have to start from scratch and take so long. What did we build before that we can leverage now? I think that was a really genius idea that a lot of other companies during this time could use. Just look at your backlog of ideas. Do you have something already kind of in the pipeline, even half built? Let's start building on that.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
And then I also think it's makes people, times like these make people realize that how important it is to diversify your client base. With you were lucky that you had customers that were already being able to weather a situation like this. It's a great strategy to diversify your client base and just moving forward and looking to the future. What are the other things that you can think of, that risks that are threats that occur in your business that you could hedge against by choosing which clients you want to work with?
For us, regardless of vertical, it's putting one tech stack on top of another. So we've got 3 or 4 competitors that we're keeping an eye on constantly. And we did take a look at those competitors, and each of those competitors have little slivers of our tech stack. So we took all those 4 or 5 competitors that we have and combined them all into one, and that was the genesis of our Standard Insights or Smart Choice AI platform. So we're always on the lookout, trying to put one tech stack on top of another, right? So it's like a MMA fighter. They've got to know boxing, they're striking, the Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling. On top of that, they've got to do strength workouts, flexibility workouts, and watch their diet. So that's how I like to think, just well-rounded tech stack.
Yeah, it sounds like just taking the best of what you see that's out there in the world and throwing your own solution together. Sounds like a great plan. And
I think right now, with what we're going with COVID, it's not going to go away anytime soon. Is that companies have realized the vital importance of the digitization of their organization across the board. So companies are, I know some companies are forward thinkers, but a lot of companies, as we've seen, big and small, are backpedaling because of COVID.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that too, and some of the other executives that I've interviewed, I've seen some backpedal as well, because it's a scary world out there navigating in this uncertainty. But I also think you're right. It's an opportunity for companies to get ahead, explore AI, because it's more of a long-term game. I feel like that the benefits may come a little bit later down the road with a little investment up front.
And if you look at our website and if you look at our logo, it's Standard Insights, and it goes up and it goes down, but it's always trending up. And companies have to realize that just because you go out for a run today and you start eating vegetables today, you're not going to lose weight tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's a lifestyle. whether it's diet or exercise, in your personal life, and it's a data-driven lifestyle it is in your work life.
Excellent. Well, Jerry, I want to thank you for your time on the podcast. And if our listeners wanted to follow you, where would they go?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca, for having me on. But first, they can follow me, find me on LinkedIn, Jerry Abiog at Standard Insights, or they can shoot me an email, Jerry, Jerry, at standardinsights.io. Or if you're a restaurant owner listening into this podcast and looking to see how AI can help you rise from the ashes of COVID, they can go to our subdomain. It's IORDER.menu, and those are the three ways that someone can get a hold of me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jerry, for coming on the show and sharing with us your journey in AI and all of the insights that came along with it.
Hey, thanks, Rebecca.
Of course. Hey, thanks for listening. Don't forget to download the next episode so you can listen to it on your next commute or trip. You can access more great insights and other goodies on our website at launchitspot.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there, which will notify you when we post the new goods. And of course, we always appreciate shares and likes by our listeners. Did you know that you can be featured on Launch? We are always looking for interesting people who are striving to become better leaders, as well as subject matter experts in any of our content categories listed in our nav bar. Believe it or not, your story can inspire so many people. All you have to do is quickly apply on our website and we'll be in touch. Now, how are you going to lead the world?